Dr. Connelly currently serves as the superintendent of Cumberland County Schools. I know, wow, right? Yeah. Throughout his career, he has served as a variety of roles in public education, including the chief of staff for Wake County Public School System. Dr. Reverend Connelly, I don't know where he finds the time, is also the senior pastor of St. Augustine Missionary Baptist Church here in Fuquay, which is a local congregation with a great reputation for service. We are thankful that he's here with us, and the title of his talk is Saving the Church by Re-engaging the Disengaged, Generations Lost. Please welcome the Reverend Dr. Marvin Connelly, Jr.
Good morning. Good morning. Yep, still morning. In my life, time runs together, and I never really know if it's morning, noon, or night. It all runs together. When I was a high school principal, middle school principal, I knew what time it was when the bell rang for lunch. It was lunchtime. But when I went to central office, there was no bell. And my admin, around about 3 o'clock, she'd say, "Did you eat lunch?" I said, "Lunch? Oh, wow. It's 3:30. Let me say I am delighted to be here with you. Thank you for including me. Let me start by sharing with you that there was this young minister who went into ministry early. He was about 18 years old, by way of Campus Crusade for Christ. And he went to ministry, and life went on, and he was in ministry, went into the pastorate, and after about 37 years in ministry and pastorate, he had been preaching all them years, and one of the things that he had been preaching and telling people was that God is a healer. God is a healer. He heals everyone. He heals sickness. He'd been saying that. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, with no notice, no alert, nothing popped up on his phone, he was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4 cancer. It was in his throat, in his jaw, on his tongue, on his brain, out of nowhere. And the doctors didn't know where it came from. And the doctor said, "Be there next week, you'll have surgery." And Chapel Hill. And it was a 17-hour surgery. And halfway through the surgeon went out, and the brain surgeon went out and gathered his family in and said, "He's not going to survive. He's not going to make it." It was stage 4 cancer. And his wife and his son said, "Well, that's odd," said, "because my dad said he was going to be a cancer survivor. So how is he not going to make it?" The doctor said, "Well, what do you want us to do? We can sew him back up, send him home, and he'll probably survive about 2 months. Or we can do the surgery, finish it, but I'm going to warn you, he probably won't survive, or he'll have a stroke on the table, and he'll be invalid probably the rest of his life." So his wife said, "Well, before he went in surgery, in the waiting room, he wrote on the bulletin board Jeremiah 29:11, and said that, 'Family, don't worry, God will give the expected end.'" So based on that, go back in, doctor, and finish the surgery. So the doctor said, okay, fine, we'll do it. And the family prayed, and about halfway to the end, after that conversation, the brain surgeon went back out, and the oncology surgeon went back out, and told the family, said, he's fine, he's fine. We're about finishing surgery. Well, that was 4 years ago, and here I am. So, I shared that to say, I didn't really know that God is a healer. I had heard that he's a healer. I had read that he's a healer. My mama told me he was a healer. My pastor had told me he was a healer. And I had been preaching that for 37 years, now 40-something. But I came to realize I didn't really know that until I experienced it. And when you experience the goodness of God, it is different than just reading it, just learning it, just knowing it by what you've been told. And so now, when I tell people God is a healer, I know what I'm talking about. And when I go back to Chapel Hill about every 6 to 8 months, the surgeon comes in. There's always about 8 or 9 doctors that come in because I never smoked, never drank, and they didn't know where this cancer came from. So they had all these researchers that are always harassing me when I go up there and want to look in my throat and all that stuff. And not the last time I went, but the time before last, I went, and the surgeon, he looked at me, and I said, after he did his exam, and I said, oh boy, what's he gonna say? I said, what is it? He said, oh, nothing. He said, I just remain amazed. He said that you're still here. He said, and I'm sorry. I said, for what? He said, I told your family that you wouldn't survive, but you're here. He said, and I remember you telling me before the anesthesiologist came in, I remember you praying for me. He said, and since that day, he says, my relationship with God is different as a surgeon. And he shared that with me. And so I have accepted that if for no other reason that this happened to me, it was for that surgeon to come to know God. And for me, that's worth it. Me and God got in a fight with cancer, but we won. Now, cancer left me, the surgeon left me with a speech impediment, but I almost said, well, God, why? Here I am at the top of my professional career. I had just been named as a superintendent, and I had worked with Heather for years in Wake County. I had been a state adjuster for 20-some years as pastor. Why now, God? And then I almost said, I said to myself, I'm going to retire from the superintendency. I'm definitely going to retire from pastoring, because the people won't be able to tolerate a pastor with a speech impediment. Someone's going to retire. And when I wrote it out, and I was getting ready to meet with my deacons and senior leadership the next weekend, the Lord said to me, what did I tell Moses? Moses complained that he stuttered. He had a speech impediment. I'm not going to do it, Lord. He said, I told Moses, you know, and I'll speak for you. So for the last 4 years, speech impediment or not, I'm still going. So I want to say to you, there is a African proverb, African saying, in the tribe of Masai, Masai, and it is Assyrian Unjeri, Assyrian Unjeri, and it means, how are the children? And in this tribe, when they greet one another, they don't say, good morning, how are you? They don't say, how are you doing? But when they greet one another, they always say, Assyrian Unjeri, how are the children? So I want to ask us this morning, in our congregations, how are the children? And the reason why the African tribe ask one another, how are the children? They realize that if the children were not well, then the future of the tribe was not well. And the future of the tribe was at risk if the children were not well. So in our churches, our mosques, our temples, our parishes, how often in our coming and going and our hustle and bustle and doing ministry and doing auxiliaries and doing this and doing that, do we ask one another, how are the children? And the future of the church is at risk. And the church has to be saved by re-engaging the young people, re-engaging the disengaged. Youth and young adults are disengaged. I'm not sure about here at the Biden Presence, but at St. Augusta, we used to have so many young people that after offering, when the children went out for children's church, the pews were almost empty. But now, we don't see those children, and we don't see those young families. Youth and young adults are disengaged. Some who are attending are disconnected. They're just there. And our congregation demographic is getting older and older. I remember pastors asking a friend of mine one time, he had been the pastor of his church for about 40 years. And I asked him, I said, Pastor, what is the key to success and longevity? He said, well, Reverend, he said, stay there long enough to bury some of your enemies. Well, I have been there, Gerald, long enough that I buried not my enemies, but some of the enemies of the Lord. But all of a sudden, after 25, 23 years, I realized, I buried too many people. And the pipeline of those coming in and those going on to glory is not balanced. And I said, the majority of our congregation are my age. Maybe that's a problem, maybe it's not. But if we think about the African tribe, how are the children? What is the future of the church if we don't have young people and young families? I remember telling St. Augusta back in 2007 or so, we built a new family life center. I said, they wanted this, they wanted that, we want to have that, we want to have this. I said, listen, I'm not really concerned about what you want. I want to know what the children want. Because you and I won't be here to enjoy it. All we're doing is building it. But what's important is, what do the children and the young adults want in this building? Because they're the ones that will be doing ministry from the building when we have gone on to heaven. But families with young children are opted out. And church services, Sunday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and knowing Jesus is not a priority in many families. Some young people grow up with the same mindset. For us, when I came along, I'm a baby boomer. It didn't matter how long you were out on Saturday night at the nightclub or whatever. When Sunday morning came, at 9:45, you will be in church in Sunday school. No matter what, you didn't have an option. Parents didn't ask us, do you want to go to church? Are you going to church? But now, in some families, children have the option. And they grow up with church and knowing Jesus not being a priority. Everything else is a priority. As a superintendent, I remember early in my career, principals were not allowed to plan anything on Wednesday night. On Wednesday was what? Church night. But now, not only the school systems plan stuff on Wednesday night, some plan it on Sunday morning. Restaurants, thank God for Chick-fil-A. Restaurants didn't used to allow children to work on Sunday morning. But now, not only do the children work on Sunday morning, on the Sabbath, she talked about the Sabbath, but so do adults. Now, it's not a sin to work on Sunday morning, and I'm glad. Well, why? Because if I'm at church preaching, and the fire alarm goes off at my house, I hope the firemen are working. But is it Sunday morning other priorities, baseball, soccer, whatever, hockey? Is that because you have to or you choose to? And what is it that children are learning? They're learning that the Sabbath and Jesus is not a priority. Now, people do what they want to do. I'm not knocking it. It's like Burger King, have it your way. And the old R&B song saying, it's your thing, baby. Do what you want to do. But I told my children coming up, they went to Middle Creek High School, Southeast, Georgia. I told them, tell the coach you won't be there until around 12:30. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord on Sunday morning. My son got a job at Hardee's when he was coming up. He said, they want me to work Sunday morning, Dad. I should be there at 11:30. I said, nope. Tell the boss man that's not going to happen. You know, because your dad does not allow you to work on Sunday morning during church time. That was our rule. So we grew up that way. And when my children grew up, thank God they grew up. But they're not off of my payroll But for some reason, my oldest is 42, they're not on payroll, but they keep coming back for retirement benefits. But Sunday morning remains a priority in their lives, because that's how we raise them. Why is this happening? Why is it happening? Young people and young families are becoming disengaged with the church. One, because of the church's inability or unwillingness to pivot ministry. Pivot. And during the pandemic and after the pandemic, some churches have closed down. Why? Maybe financial, but for some, even right now, if you don't pivot, we may not survive. At first, I said to the audio-video ministry and the deacons, I don't know about this online. But some of the people still haven't come back. I see them in Walmart. I see them at Food Line, but they don't come on Sunday morning. So it's not COVID. COVID is about over, and COVID is everywhere. They're online. And I almost said to them, let's do away with online, the virtual option. Let's don't have that. But then, my trustees and my finance ministry said to me, well, Pastor, wait a minute. Said, during the pandemic, when we started giving online, we take up more tithes and offering online than we took up before the pandemic. And right now, the majority of the congregation gives online. And oh, by the way, Pastor, the Facebook and social media people said to me, did you know that we have a family in California that logs on every Wednesday night for Bible study and logs on every Sunday morning for worship, and they give online? So what do you want to do about them? And then we have some former members who used to live in this area. One family is in Wilmington, one is in Las Vegas, and they log on, and they pay tithes online. They said, what do you want to do about those members? And I paused, and I said, wow. And I looked at the Facebook and the YouTube, and all of a sudden I have more people tuned in for Bible study than I ever had in person. So what do I do? Do I say, no, they need to be here in person? Or do I pivot? Those who listen to Jesus, the 5,000, oh, by the way, for all those that have a mayor church, you don't have anything on Jesus. He had the first mayor church. They went right up on him, sitting at his feet, 5,000 people. It was more than 5,000. So I think that verse says that was the men, not counting the women and the children. So, inability to pivot ministry. Gerald, how about get Isaiah 1, 12 through 15, and Lady Joyce get Matthew 24, 10 through 13. Maybe we have been doing the same thing over and over and over ever since the establishment of our ministry. But have we ever stopped and asked ourselves why? Now, at St. Augustine, we used to have women's day, men's day, youth day, ushers day, deacons day. So everybody had a day except God. And we took up an offering, and then we looked back, and time you gave an honorarium to the speaker, paid for people to eat food afterwards for the repast or fellowship, we paid out more than we took up. And all of a sudden we realized that every year for these annual days, we were celebrating ourselves, what we had done. We had flowers on, some people had special dresses on. Oh, it was a special day. But all of a sudden we realized, why are we doing that? And we asked the question, how many people got saved, gave their life to Christ as a result of those activities? Sure.
When you come to appear before me, who hath cried this at your hand, to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations, incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with, it is iniquity, even the solemn meetings. Your new moons and your appointed feasts, my soul hateth, they are trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And when you spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood.
So God asked the question, why are you doing all this? And so we are tied to traditions. I don't know about many of your denominations, but in the Missionary Baptist Church, especially the black church, we do a lot of stuff, and we've been doing it for years. If you came to a Missionary Baptist black church on the first Sunday, which is Communion Sunday, as a woman, and you didn't have on a hat, those older mothers would look at you like, that's disgraceful. What a shame. As a man, if you came and you didn't have on a necktie, your Sunday clothes, I can't believe they came up in here with blue jeans on. Well, we used to be that way at St. Augusta. But many years ago, we stopped worrying about what people wear. Now, on the first Sunday communion, we still have a little bit of decorum, so we don't offend us old people. But nowhere in the Bible can we find from Genesis to Revelation that you had to wear certain clothes. Now, I wear a robe for two purposes. One, I sweat a lot, and I don't need to be sweating up my suits and paying the laundry. But secondly, it symbolizes that I am not important. It is God. And it removes the people's mind off of what I'm wearing and it focuses on God. That. But should I worry about what the congregation has on as long as they are decent and in order? You know? What we do, we don't now, but we used to, and that alone, when we stopped that at St. Augusta, all of a sudden, all these young people started coming to church. Some had on a t-shirt. Do I care? What is a winter matter? But it was a tradition. And some of our traditions, as Isaiah said, if we don't pivot, may destroy the church. Matthew, why is it happening?
And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity
false teachers. There's a lot of rhetoric out there now. Young people are being taught hate, taught hatred, taught white, black, Jew, Gentile. Well, what happened to teaching them to love? And false teachers out there now, I never in my life heard so much in the school system, and now it has penetrated the church. Since when did the church have to be Republican or Democrat or independent, conservative, liberal? At what point did the church get hung up on what your political views are? Jesus said to the disciples when they were acting like that, they weren't Republican, Democrat, liberal, but they told Jesus, you can't go over there. They are Samaritans. And then when Jesus gave them the Great Commission, he said, go ye therefore into all nations and do what? Preach the gospel and teach all nations. But somehow, false teachers have risen up in the church and are standing in pulpits and are teaching people to be divided politically and socially. And young people are listening to this. And they said, oh, well, my pastor said that I'm not supposed to interact with those people. I'm supposed to hate people that don't look like me. My pastor said it, so it must be true. False teachers. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3, and the late George Habakkuk 2 and 3. It's happening.
Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
It's happening before our very eyes. There is a falling away from the church. It's happening because it was prophesied. But what do we as the church do? Just watch it happen? Or try our very best to re-engage those who have been disengaged? Habakkuk.
And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry.
We wrote the vision for St. Augustine now 24 years ago, when I first came to the church as a pastor. And we revisited it about 10 years ago. But we have not revisited that vision in 10 years, that vision statement. And guess what? Majority of the people who wrote it are dead young. Majority of the people who wrote it, we're barely making it. They're sitting in the elders' corner. But the majority of the congregation don't know what that vision statement was about. They don't understand it. So do we need to reimagine the church? Do we need a new vision statement? Maybe not a new one, but have we written it so that the young people today understand what is abiding presence about? What is St. Augustine about? What is St. Bernadette about? What's our vision? I have about 7 minutes. So let me hustle. Point being, maybe this congregation needs to come together and have a mission, vision, and value session all over again. All right, why is it happening? You can look at this later on, but Lifeway research says that 96% people are moving, going off to college. It's preventing them from attending. I heard Pastor earlier say something about this. 73% of the young people who are not coming to church is over church hurt. Church hurt. Something the pastor did, something the members did, or people being judgmental, or being hypocritical, or not feeling connected. They were hurt in the church. And trust me, church hurt is a deep hurt. 70% name religious reasons, ethical, political beliefs. If we aren't careful, we're going to run people away from the church over this political rhetoric. I don't preach politics on Sunday morning. Because preaching politics is not to get anybody into heaven. And my job is to tell them how to get to heaven. I'm like Michael Jordan. Somebody asked Michael Jordan to say something about Republican, Democrat, and Michael said, nope, not doing it. He said, why? He said, well, Republicans buy my shoes, Democrats buy my shoes. So as a pastor, I don't really care what you believe politically, as long as you don't go contrary to what God says. Political reasons. Some say they disagree with the church on their political stance. Listen to this, 63% of the young people saying that the people who were leading in charge of the youth ministry were judgmental, hypocritical. And the people who were in charge of the youth ministry hurt them. Another article, the 5 most frequently chosen reasons in a survey why they were dropping out. Again, moving to college, people being judgmental, disagreeing. But half who dropped out said that moving away to college played a role in their dropping out. They went to college and they never reconnected. Now, in another article, some young people said they don't need it. They said, well, we heard the messages in the church, and all they were telling us is about life application, but we can get that somewhere else. We can get that from Facebook. We can get that from Twitter. We can get that on YouTube. Life application. They know the truth. They know it. We have been teaching them, just be nice. Be nice. And that's what we fed them. But they have learned a whole lot more than just be nice. And they get tired of pretending, so they leave church. Are they coming because they want to come, or because you made them come? They want community. As a principal, I always said to my staff, the reason why young people get involved in gangs, they're looking for love. But they're looking for love in all the wrong places. Is the church a community where people feel love, no matter their socioeconomic status, no matter the color of their skin? Newsflash. In America, what is the most segregated time in America? Sunday morning. That's a sad commentary, that Sunday morning is the most segregated time in America. But young people want community. They want to love everybody. It's not the children, trust me, as a superintendent and former principal, all this racism and hatred and stuff, it's not the children. It's the adults. We send them out unarmed. We send them out with philosophical ideas. But they really don't know what Christianity is about, what Jesus is about. We haven't taught them deeply what it's about. Some never attended church in the first place. They weren't raised up in the church. Church is relevant. I want to pause here. What do you mean church is relevant? Don't you mean irrelevant? Nope. I mean relevant. Some pastors there's nothing wrong with it, but some are middle-aged pastors trying to look 20, put on the blue jeans, the tight pants, the muscle shirt. I want to look like the young people. I want to connect with them. Well, you did. You did. And guess what? Everybody else out in the world looks the same way. So you're relevant, but in our effort to become relevant, have we become irrelevant? Is there any difference between the church and the world? Maybe not. Nothing wrong with it. We have blue jeans Sunday at our church. I wear my blue jeans, But I let them know there's nothing wrong with a necktie. There's nothing wrong with a suit, But we're trying to be relevant. And we're so busy bringing the world into the church as opposed to taking the church into the world. Maybe we have lost our balance, and the church may have become a social club rather than the body of Christ. You read the next one on your own. So what do? Give them voice. Ways to re-engage them. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. Give them voice in the church. True, authentic relevancy. Provide ways for them to lead. Reimagine the how of ministry. I'm here to tell you, and Mr. Joyce and Lady Joyce can witness, St. Augustine would not have survived the pandemic if it had not been for the young people. They handled all the music ministry, the PA system, everything. We had church out in the parking lot. We couldn't be inside. It was the young people. And when we came back inside, the teenagers did all the ushering, all the taking up the offering, everything, and they saved the church. For the old people, we were afraid. I'm not touching that plate. But the young people, they weren't worried. They saved the church. They got engaged. And what we have done since the pandemic is coming to an end? We are keeping them engaged. And on Sunday morning, we have now junior trustees. And they come up and they help take up the offering. And we send adults to the back to lock it up with them, But they're still engaged in ministry. On Sunday morning, they read the scripture. They do some of the prayers. Who said that the adults have to do all the praying? Haven't we taught children how to pray? Examining burdensome rules. We talked about that. And examining our dogmatic doctrine. Maybe we need service alternative, traditional, contemporary. Maybe you need two services. One at 8, that's contemporary. One at 11, 10, that's traditional, whatever. Sermons. Maybe our sermons need to be more life application that young adults and young people can relate to. it's not enough for me to tell them that Jesus wept and Moses wept. Why? I have to help them understand, relevant, connect that sermon to people's lives today. I talk about participation. Again, the virtual option might be here to stay. And if we want to re-engage them, have we asked them why they're not re-engaged? Have we surveyed the membership, the parishioners? Maybe we need to do a focus group. I'm getting ready to do one at St. Augusta with all the people who have not come back. It's not enough for me to stand in the pulpit and say, we ought to trust God, we ought to know God can protect us, everybody ought to be back in church. It's not enough for me to do that. I need to ask them, what will make you comfortable coming back? What do we need to do to help you come back, to feel the need to come back? Ask the people, ask the children. I guarantee you, if you ask the children, they'll tell you. You may not like what they say, but they'll tell you how they feel and why they're disengaged. I think that's my last slide. Any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Do you find, I'm not serving a parish right now, but friends of mine say the hardest people to get back are families with young children. I don't know if that's true across other churches as well.
It is, because I know for our church, during the pandemic, because we have our services on YouTube and Facebook and they're archived, young families have found other stuff to do on Sunday morning. And they say, I can go back and watch it later. I can look at it later. And they have also gotten comfortable with not being at church on Sunday morning and doing other stuff, you know, and it became okay. It became all right during the pandemic to not be at church on Sunday morning. So now that the pandemic is over, you know, when you do something more than a few times, it becomes habit. And habit becomes your character. And your character becomes who you are. So they've gotten the habit and that character of not being there on Sunday morning. And we have to break that paradigm somehow by re-engaging them.
And I would say too, initially it was the mask, because some of our young children could not keep the mask on, so the parents, when we first went back to service, they opted to stay home. And then what he's speaking on, these other alternatives, going to the beach, taking little trips and watching the service later, it kind of just took over.
Yeah, and I finally said to our congregation, masks are optional. You wear a mask if you want to. But the young people, you know what they said to me? Pastor, why do I have to wear a mask at church? I am at school all week long with 800, 900, 1,000 people, and we don't wear a mask. But on Sunday morning, Mama said I had to wear a mask. Newsflash. Anyone else? Well, I have either totally confused you or I did a good job. Thank you. God bless you.